Once again for joining us on Talkin Fight for a special episode featuring our friends from across the pond, Carl and Ray from Last Bell Boxing, as well as Mike Orr at 4 joining us from Knuckle Up. And we're here to talk about the Olympics and specifically recap the Olympics, specifically boxing at the Olympics. I'll start it off. If there's one thing that I noticed during the Olympics across the various bouts that I saw in all the weight divisions, if there's one rule I would implement now, going forward, if they're going to keep boxing at the Olympics, that is I'd implement an unsportsmanlike conduct rule. Not for the headbutting, per se, not for any of those kinds of truly illegal tactics, but I would call it the arm draping move, where the opposition fighter literally drapes his arms across his opposition and just weighs heavily. And I'd count to 3 and I'd give him a penalty and get on with the fight, because I saw that way too often. Anyway, my small intro, there you go. Lads, why don't you make an intro call yourself? Start with you, Ray. What do you think?
About what you were saying, or
no, in general, what did you think about the Olympics?
The Olympics was a marvelous tournament. The standard was brilliant. Everything, it was so refreshingly different from Rio. The standard of judging, the standard of refereeing was absolutely fantastic. It all comes down to when they pretty much sacked Aiba, didn't they? Really, they got rid of all the old officials that were there in Rio because of all the allegations of corruption and replaced them with a new breed. Essentially, the judges were on point. There was a couple of times where they made a few decisions, but generally, the refereeing was quality, and the judging was always brilliant. I didn't see any hint of bias, and that was reflected also in the quality of the bouts. I wasn't disappointed by. There was very few bouts I was disappointed by. There was lots of nice shocks that we saw. No doubt we'll talk about in this particular segment tonight. But there was some great quality bouts, and there's some real talent coming through that hopefully we'll be talking about in 4 or 5 years' time. Definitely in the next cycle in Paris if some stay on, and definitely in the pro ranks as well.
Absolutely. Carl, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd just like to start by saying that I think it was a success for the British team. I think we finished second behind Cuba. You could argue it's Cuba's national sport. So unlike the thumbnail that was written by someone who I won't name, we suggest it might not have been a success for the British boxing team. I'd like to argue. I think we got some big stars who are going to turn over, you know. I think Lauren Price, for me, was a standout. I thought she was excellent. So I'm sure we're going to go into it a little bit more detail. But no, I think it proves if you put a bit of funding behind boxing, you'll reap the rewards. The British team are well funded. We all know that. So I think it was a good outcome for what we're putting there. So I can see all the Union Jacks behind you, so I know you're a big fan. But yeah, I think we did well. You know, we did well. Second in the table, I'll take that.
Before Mike jumps in, I just want to clarify the thumbnail description. I just got the impression that British boxing fans would have been disappointed. Fraser Clark coming away with the bronze. What about Big Ben there? What about his antics? I mean, give me a break. I mean, at the end of the day, I just thought I expected a bit more in terms of gold medals. Walking into those Olympics, I thought the British fan would have expected more gold as well.
Yeah, to be fair though, Graham, just jumping about Ben Whittaker, he did apologise for his antics, and I just think emotions were running high. You know, for me, I'm not saying I endorse his reaction, but it proves what a winner he is. I like to see that bit of needle where he's clearly not happy with that medal, but he did apologise afterwards. So. Yeah, I take your point, but I think the performance was whereabouts we need to be. Yeah.
And just jumping on the back of that, we took 11 boxers to Japan. 6 of them got medals. That's not a bad ratio to have.
I didn't check the other teams, but there were only 2 other teams that took 11 boxers. One being the Russian Olympic Committee, and the other, I believe, was either Uzbek or Kazakhstan. I can't remember which one of those 2.
Kazakhstan.
Yeah. So, but neither of those 2 countries fared as well as Team GB. Anyway, Mike, what are your opening comments?
What's going on, guys? Yeah, I seem to be having some feedback coming in when I talk, so I don't know if you can hear me or not. But
No, we can hear you fine.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, man.
Now you look great.
Oh, thank you. You guys are looking at my nose and everything. Guys, man, yeah, what a great tournament.
It's not a great view.
I thoroughly enjoyed the
There we go.
different upsets that we had, especially that one on the last day with the guy from.
Mike, you let us down. Technology at its finest. I thought there was one call that went quite a bit unfairly, and that was the Japanese female fighter. I didn't think I don't think she truly won gold in that fight.
I think she was brilliant throughout the tournament. I think she was an absolute quality fight. The fight between her and Sol, she was absolutely. I knew once I saw her in the quarterfinals that her style would be too good for Karis Arkansas, and I thought if those two hadn't met, they would have inevitably met in the final. They were the two best boxers in that weight category. Karis Arkansas was from the British Army. She had a counter-punching style. She wasn't very. Her output wasn't great, but what she did throw was effective when she did throw it. For me, Irie Senna had the style which was the antidote to Karis Arkansas's style. She was punch perfect in that fight, and to lose to the eventual gold medalist, in my opinion, Senna deserved the win, and there was no great shame. I see we've got a comment there from Big T. GB was the only team that qualified properly with 11 qualifiers. You're the countries that had 11. I think he probably hasn't finished his comment. But to be honest, our guys lost to the best in there, and there was some quality in this tournament. The Olympics and the Worlds are two tournaments where you're going to get quality, cream rising to the very top. And our girl lost to the Japanese girl Senna, and I thought Senna was quality.
Right, what did you disappointed in Charlie Davison?
The likes of Charlie Davison, McGrail, perhaps I was expecting more from, yes. And that's not just because I don't rate them, just with their ability, I was expecting more from them. But sometimes it can be the luck of the draw. Not going off topic, but if you look at Luke McCormack, he got Andy Cruz within his second fight. So he eventually lost to the gold medalist, which how frustrating is that? So yeah, in terms of sometimes it's just a path that it took to get there. But yeah, I was expecting more from Charlie. I was definitely expecting more from Peter McGrail.
Yeah. Do you think Peter McGrail had one eye on turning over? I know he had the offer on the table before going to this.
Well, yeah, and allegedly they all pretty much did. I mean, I don't know to be confirmed. Probably somebody who can confirm it. Somebody that's in the chat, Mr. Big T. He'll be able to confirm that if he wants to. But I am aware that a couple of promoters had been speaking to Wild Boxers, are giving them offers. Peter McGrail, I'm not too sure if he had. I mean, the Olympics, what we've got to remember is it should have been last year. And some of those who inevitably were going to be pro would have been pro this year, maybe had 2, 3, 4 fights in. So I think our performance squad, you like to Lee Pullen and Alloway, and I know McCracken wasn't there, but the overall management, if we're going to call them, would have ensured that the boys and girls going out of Tokyo were fully focused on the task in hand. So I don't think any of them would have had the eye on something else. Afterwards, they're straight away talking about the professional game, but that's because they've literally completed the amateur circuit. What else is there to do when you've been to the Olympics? I know people might want to stay for the Commonwealths, but Peter McGrail, I just think he was unlucky. He's a quality operator. He's a really good counter puncher, really skillful. I've seen him in the ABAs when he boxed Callum French. I thought he was unlucky. I thought Callum just nicked it, and that's not me being biased. I just thought Callum just nicked it. But he's a talented operator, and I think he's going to do really well as a pro.
So Big T says Peter was fully concentrated on the Olympics, just had a bad draw, to be frank. The Thai fighter was also decent. But his next point was about Caroline Dubois. Now, Ray or Graham, do you think she's going to go another cycle, or do you think she's going to turn over?
She's young enough to go do another cycle in Paris. I think Karis Altensal and Caroline Dubois could do another cycle. They're good enough. I mean, if we look at the squad that went for us, probably those two would be the ones for me that would probably stay amateur. I think a lot of the men are probably turn over. Definitely Big Fraser because of his age.
Yeah.
I think the McCormack twins have all but said that they're going to turn over. Galal Yafai will turn over, join his brothers. Siobhan Clark, I'm not too sure. He's the heavyweight that we had. I definitely think Ben Whittaker will go. I think he's got his.
Ray, I agree with Big T. I think she'll turn over. I think the bright lights and the money be too much.
I think so.
And Big T has said she should go another cycle, but I'm fearing she might go pro.
I think she should stay. I think she should stay. I mean, who am I to tell her what to do? But I think with being 20 years old, I think she's definitely got ability, but she's got time. And I think maybe even just go after the Commonwealth Games, stay on for the Commonwealth Games and then go. But
I just think with women's boxing being on the crest of a wave that it is, the boom that it's got, I think it might be too much of a pull, especially if a certain promoter comes calling like you may do.
Yeah. But I mean, if you look at their division, so she was in 60 kilograms when you had Kelly Harrington who won the gold there. I think she'll turn over, and I think the big promoters will probably just go for her. So I could see both ways because there's not really necessarily the depth in women's boxing. So, but at amateur boxing there is, and she can do so much, particularly if Kerry Harrington's not about, because Kerry Harrington's dominating a bit at 60 kilograms, and if she goes, Caroline Dubois might think, well, here's my chance to do something at the Worlds or Europeans or what have you. Because the Olympics really is in Paris in 2024, so it's not that long of a wait.
No,
and then she'll be 23, so she's still young enough. She's still got another 10 years left as a pro. So I think time's on her side.
Yeah. So Big T says if she stays, she becomes Olympic champion in the next 3 years, which a lot of people seem to think that way, don't they? Yeah,
it's doable, and I think what she's probably thinking, because she's got from a good family, they're good, they're devout Christians, and I think the advice to her probably from her old man will be, you can maximize your revenue if you do something at the Worlds or at the Olympics or in the next cycle.
Yeah. So Big T says there's big money in the amateur game at the minute. The World's AIBA are offering 100 grand for the winner.
Yeah.
My gosh.
So Ray, let's get on to Gefal Yafai because I'd like to touch on him because what an impressive performance. So Graham, what did you think to Mr. Yafai's performance in the Olympics? I thought it was outstanding.
I will agree. He didn't catch me by surprise at all. I was kind of expecting him to move. He did everything I expected of him. He did a fantastic. He had fantastic games. I mean, if ever you could, and that's what I was hoping to see. To be blunt, was that kind of quality all the way through. I just think, as opposed to Ray, there were a few stumbling blocks, challenges, but in general, I liked what I saw from him, specifically him. But there were other fighters who I didn't appreciate their style as much, if you will. Anyway, but his fights were great. I loved watching him.
Yeah. Did you catch any, Mike? Did you catch any Gefal Yafai?
No, I didn't have a chance. I didn't have a chance to. I didn't go back. I haven't had a chance to go back and watch the highlights yet. But
well, as you always say on my court 4, keep an eye out for the kid. Get on YouTube, watch his fights. I think that's about the 4 lines, isn't it?
Yeah, that is, man. You're catching on great, Carl. You're catching on great, brother. Soon enough, you'll be a star just like me.
Something like that, Mike. Yeah. So let's get on to an informed choice. And Raymondo, how good was it, and where did he go next?
It's funny with Galalia 5 because he's got the most untypically Olympic style that you can get, because he's not on the back foot, he's straight in your face, he sits on your chest, and he just cuts you down from the inside. He's class, he really is. He can hit with either hand. He doesn't give his opponents a rest, and he's relentless. And I quite like his style. I'm usually more of a fan of the sweet science, your back foot boxers, particularly in these type of tournaments. That's a style that's favoured. But he just ripped up the book on that one. He's really, really aggressive. You know, I love the way he was clinical in his performance against a Cuban. I thought that was a real big win for him, and that gave him all the confidence in the world for him to go on and push on. Where he goes next, 100% the pros, 100% the pros. He'll want to join his brothers. They can advise him, they can guide him. He can kind of learn from them little mistakes. Don't forget he's 28 as well. He's probably at the right age. But once he finds his right way at the pros, I think he's going to be a good force. He looks as though he can punch. He looks physically strong. He's a talent. He's a real talent. You know, and Preps comes from I think Frank Sullivan's gym over in Birmingham. Obviously, Rob McCracken knows that gym really, really well. And they're churning out some stars. Birmingham's becoming a real fight city.
The thing I liked about him, Ray, what I noticed is he's very, very calm under fire.
Yeah.
He's very calm. He doesn't lose his head. So, I think this kid's got all it takes. And if I was a certain promotion, I won't name any names, I'd be wanting his signature sharpish. Mm-hmm. Because I think he jumped through the levels in the pro game very, very quickly.
Yeah, I agree.
Big T said Olympic is pro now over 3 rounds. Gafel will be a big star in the pros. He has power and he can hurt. Definitely going pro. Sorry, Big T, I'm struggling reading today. I agree. I think for me, he was a standout in the British team. For me, for me, he was. I thought he was absolutely class. I never saw him ruffled. I never saw him panic. And it was just like he knew he had it in the locker and he was just going to carry out the game plan. Well, that translates very well into the pro game, don't it?
Yeah, he did have that calmness a bit like James DeGale did. You know, and I know what you mean. He's very comfortable and uncomfortable. But that's what I mean by how effective he was in the inside. It's not very often you saw or you see that amongst these, you know, the in the Olympics. You don't really see that. They tend to be on the back foot, always on the outside. But he used his footwork brilliantly to get on the inside, and he just made it his home, and no one could cope with him. You know, people really struggled with him. He just made easy work of people. And like I said, that win against the Cuban gave him so much confidence. I'm not too sure whether. I mean, yeah, he did definitely did my expectations of him. Not too sure how I would have said would have stand out. There was a few, but he's going to have a good pro career because he's got the most pro style out of the 11.
Yeah, I'm trying not to make this too British centric for our Canadian friends, but Richie Woodall, I don't know whether you're both aware of Richie Woodall. You know, he was a middleweight, super middleweight, very good boxer. Roy
Jones Jr., didn't he? And he got a bronze. Yeah.
Richie Woodall was absolutely raving about him, and he's normally got a very good eye, hasn't he, for these up-and-coming boxers. So Big T said great draw and was quietly confident going into all fights. Top lad. I'd have to concur.
Yeah.
So Ray, do you want to pick the next one? Because that Mena, because we did that well.
I was just going to work. I mean, you started off with Charlie, so we might just work from the top down. Obviously, Big Fraser. I mean, he's been around Team GB for, since since Graham had black hair. He's been around for that long. He was there when Anthony Joshua was in the cycle, and he was there even before that. But he deserved his bronze. It was the manner of which he got beaten. I think that was disappointed. I think with the cuts, but he was a tremendous captain, and the little things like supporting all the boxers when he wasn't fighting. He was at all the fights, waving the British flag with his cap on. He's a great character, and I think for me, I think he turns over. He's 29. He's finally got to the Olympics. He's medalled there. I don't think there's anything left for him to do in any amateur game, and he leaves with his head held high. What an ambassador for British boxing. Fraser Clark, take a bow, mate.
Yeah. I mean, he only comes from Burton, don't he? Which is down the road from.
Down the road from you, yeah.
There's in the water in the East Midlands. We're dominating, aren't we? Be it the Olympics, be it Lee Wood, be it Esserman. But anyway, moving on from that, I'm not biased at all.
Yeah. So he was our one super heavy. Then our heavyweight was Sharon Clark, Jamaica born. Sharon Clark. We know he represented Jamaica at the Commonwealth Games. I was expecting a little bit more from Sharon Clark, and again, that's just me because I know what he's got in the lockers. I know what he's about. I was expecting a little bit more from him. Again, tough draw from him. Well, I think he can stay on. I think he can stay on because I don't think he's short enough to turn anyone's head there. I think perhaps he can go at the Commonwealths, be England's representative there at heavyweight, show what he really can do, and then reevaluate the situation after that.
I think he'll turn over, Ray.
You think so? Why?
Yeah, I think he'll turn over and work his way up the pro ranks if he has to. I'm convinced he'll turn over. I think he did enough, and his background will be enough to get him a decent promoter.
So?
He may have to start a bit lower down the pecking order. But I think he'll turn over. Yeah.
I think it's tough now because I think the big one is would he go in at cruiserweight or would he go in at heavyweight? Yeah. So, I mean, if he goes in at cruiserweight, okay, fair enough. Because at heavyweight, I mean, even look at the likes of Solomon Dakis. Is that how you pronounce his surname? I mean, you've got the advantage of his start in the pro ranks. If he goes at cruiserweight, okay, he might get better looked after there. But I would look at him and I think if I was him, knowing what he's done in the past, knowing what he's done, in the national tournaments, I think he would like to do himself justice. I think stay on for a Commonwealths. That's what I would do.
Isn't age come into a factor with him? You think age will come into a factor?
Not necessarily with Sharon Clark. I think that's purely down to performance.
Right.
Yeah, Big T's put a couple of comments. Cheer for your contribution, Big T. Great job. Age is his only issue, but I think he stays for the Commonwealths, like Ray says. Big T also said he loves GB boxing. So,
Sharon, yeah. I think Big T might have just been on about Fraser Clark there. If he's on about age, I think, because that's who I was on about with the age. But if he's on about Siobhan, fair enough. So going down to the light heavies, 81. Again, looking at the seeding for this, it was the Kazakhstan. He was on about Chev, was he, for the age? Right. Yeah, well, I think Chev will stay on for the Commonwealth. So, but if you think it'd be age, I just think performance, he needs a good international tournament. But if you're going down to light heavies, obviously Ben Whittaker got a silver for us. The number one seed was the Kazakh. But I think Ben's performance lit up that division, pretty much in the same manner the way Buatsi had lit up the light heavyweight division. When he secured his bronze. Ability wise, he looked class. I just love the way he stepped up from middleweight and he's looked so comfortable at light heavyweight. I just thought, in every fight. And I know some people got at him for his showboat and what have you, But I just think that's the way he is. He's naturally flashy, but he looked good with it as well. And I just see a real bright future for him in the pro ranks. I really do.
See, boxing's about characters, isn't it? Where, we can't. The day when it all becomes vanilla will be a sad day. So why not show a bit of personality?
Yeah, and clearly the thing about him, he's got substance as well. I mean, we've seen fashion characters before. Yeah, we've had Frankie Gavin, Josh Kelly, and probably, I mean, Frankie Gavin was disciplined. Kelly, it could be, substance. He may not have that. He's definitely both very talented, those two that I mentioned there.
Yeah.
Ben seems to have a combination of both. Yeah. And I just think that the pros with the smaller gloves on, I just think he can go somewhere if he's dedicated, which he seems to be. I just think he can go a distance. But I think that's the I think that Jolie, he's now that he's stepped up, things are starting to float him, which tells me he's at the weight that he feels comfortable with.
Yeah, so, I like someone with a bit of character, because when it gets to the pro games, he's gonna have to sell tickets ultimately.
Yeah, you can see him bringing a big. I think he's from Wolverhampton or somewhere like that. Somewhere like that. So I think he can be a big ticket seller. He was on about wanting to be the mayor of Wolverhampton once he's won a goal. He's obviously a confident person, but I think he'll do well. I wouldn't have any worries about him if he was to turn over now. I wouldn't have any worries about him.
Yeah, don't say much more because these two will have a Canadian passport put under his nose.
hey, how do you know we don't already have it there, man?
Yeah.
How do you know he's not already fighting for us?
Yeah. Yeah. So coming down from there, going down into the middleweights. Obviously, we didn't have a representative there, but the middleweights was really, really interesting, which is why I want to touch upon it because the number one seed was the boy from Ukraine.
Yeah.
Alexander
Krishnak. Go on.
Yeah. I got it there.
You've been practicing that one in the mirror.
I'm learning not to be Mike when it comes to pronunciations.
Tell me you haven't been practicing that one in the mirror before we went live.
Alexander, yeah. It makes it hard even with a Geordie accent, but it was an interesting one, that one, because I was expecting him to beat the Brazilian in the final, and he got stopped, didn't he? So that one was when I was on about shocks before. I wasn't expecting that one even in the final. It's a mixed bag when it comes to stuff like that for the Olympics. But I think both, because I'm not too sure how the Brazilian would do, in the pros or what have you. But I'm expecting big things from the Ukrainian.
Yeah. I'll stick to Herbert Sosa. How about that? I'll stick to that.
Fair enough. You dropped the H, I'll allow that one.
Herbert Sosa did shock the world though with that comeback, eh?
Yeah, he did.
Come back into the Olympics, and definitely, the knockout of the week, guys. Don't forget that.
Yeah. No, and it had to be. It had to be.
Listen, that came down to, hey, I'm losing 2 rounds, 3 rounds. Hey, you know what you got to do here? You got to go out there and you got to make sure that you knock this guy out. What'd you say, Coach? You got to knock this guy out. Okay, Coach, I will. All right, Coach, I'm going to do it. And he goes out there and he does it. Like, come on. What a brilliant knockout. I give it up to him. I don't know too much about the kid. I don't know if he was swinging for the fences and hit a home run, or is this who this kid is, man? Is this kid are we gonna see lots of him or what?
Yeah, I don't know, and I think that's another point where I'll probably finish up on is a lot of these, a lot of the international boxers tend to stay on for another cycle. That's where you get the Cubans at like 32, 33.
Right.
And I'm going to go on to one right about now. So we're going to talk about the welterweights, 69 kilograms. The number one seed was Pat McCormack from Berkeley, which is down the road from where I'm from.
He gets to talk about Northeast boxing at last. Go on, mate. Fill your boot.
Get in. Pat McCormack is just class. I'm not being biased. He's brilliant. He's absolutely brilliant. His resume will tell you that. He for me, he was in the second round. I would have scored that as a knockdown. And as much as I love Pat, I would say that if I saw him, as long as it wasn't in a dark alley. But that was a knockdown, and that was I saw a lot of that in the tournament. Didn't get scored. Pat, he lost the first round, lost the second round. I thought he did enough in the third round, but the way to score it 2-1, you had to give it to Glazius. And I thought Raniel Glazius, I think that was his fourth Olympic cycle. This guy, I think, had been in 2008. So that was down to experience. But listen, Pat's done it all as an amateur, the World, Europeans. He's been in international tournaments since he was a schoolboy. I think he'll turn over. He was terrific for Team GB, silver medal. It's his second Olympics. Don't forget, he was in Rio. He was down at 64 then. He's obviously stepped up. He's physically filled out. But it was a great performance by Pat.
Ray, how far can he go in the pro ranks, do you think?
I think with Pat, it's how well they can look after him. We'll talk about his twin brother in a bit as well. I think if they come as a pair, so if you promote signing one of them, you've got to sign both of them. But he's got the physical strength. He's a good counter puncher. Perhaps he's not as he can. Perhaps he's not a bigger puncher as what Luke is, but there's ability there. But it's the little factors, they're from the Northeast. We know what the Northeast is like. It can be like a fishbowl at times. Are they going to stay local? Are they going to move away? If they can stay away from distractions, I think they can do really, really well. I literally think it's going to come down to that with these two, because I know what the area is like. If they can keep focused, stay away from those distractions, they'll do well, because you don't have that type of ability from schoolboy age when you're topping at nationals, when you're topping internationally, to be half average in the pros. I know people say it's a different sport, it's tougher, but these guys have got what it takes. And I just think they'll do quite well. They're not Big T saying here, the world is Pat's now. Big following in the Northeast. As long as they can keep out of trouble outside the gym, they will both be world champions. Quite similar to what I'm saying. I think the problem is in the Northeast, for those who aren't familiar with, it's a small geographical part of England, very, very working class. It's quite tough around there. There's not much by way of opportunities. So when somebody does well in sport or music or entertainment, they draw a lot of attention. Sometimes that's great. Sometimes that's not so great. So Pat and Luke's big challenges are going to how they're going to manage that. But so far, so good. So far, so good.
Well, if they come down to Nottingham, they'll be world champions within weeks, won't they?
Yeah, right. I may as well come down there then.
I thought he might have gotten a bit of trouble when he got cut, because I thought the referee was going to call that. I think it was the quarterfinals.
Yeah,
I thought that was really close. Like he could have gotten, he could have lost that one.
Yeah,
but I'm glad he didn't. I'm glad he went through.
Yeah. And look, now I think that comes in, and I think that's a tough thing when they haven't got their head guards and they're fighting every 3-4 days. That's one of the things but that's the experience of being at the international tournament, and that's what Carl said. About Galal Yafai. When you look at the fact that they're comfortable in very uncomfortable situations, that would have been uncomfortable. And we saw Cuts rule out some fighters within the tournament. In other tournaments, they kept their nerve, they kept their confidence.
He's a tough kid.
He's hard. He's hard as nails, Pat. So is Luke down at lightweight. 63 lightweight was a very interesting one. The number one seed for me, which I thought was quite, not necessarily bizarre, but it got to the French lad, Soufiane Oyema. He's a very talented lad. I've seen him a few times when he fought Luke Mccormack. He is very, very talented, but he got stopped, didn't he, off the now professional Keyshawn Davis. And Keyshawn Davis and I thought the number one seed would have been like Cruz, the Cuban.
He's gravy him in there.
Oh, you see, that final was just beautiful to watch because
different gravy means he's quite good, by the way. Sorry about the slang.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. Keyshawn Davis, I know he's a pro, and I think he had 2, maybe 3 fights by the time he entered the Olympics. He's quality as well,
Yeah.
But Andy Cruz just had that little bit of something, that just little bit, because
No,
Andy Cruz, yeah, that's it. Because Andy Cruz and Keyshawn Davis, for those that know, had fought already 3 times. Cruz had won all 3, but there have been razor-tight decisions. It doesn't reflect how tight it was. And for me, it was another razor-tight decision on the Sunday. And it went to Andy Cruz again. And no matter how many times I've seen that fight, I've always given it to Cruz. But it just got to show fine margins at these tournaments. And the Cubans have got that knack, whether it's a massive scoring system or what have you. But Andy Cruz is someone that I like. Whether he does that whole, I know things are changing politically. We're not going to that because we're a boxing show. Whether he does this whole defection or not will be interesting, because I like his style, this Andy Cruz. Yeah. I like the style. I don't think there's a lot of people that talk about with the Cubans now, they're a bit boring and they're not disciplined. With the likes of Cruz, Julio Garcia, Arlen Lopez, they're produced, these have got some good styles that would do quite well in the pros. Cruz is one of them. And that was a good division to watch, the lightweight division.
Yeah.
It's certainly something that occurred to me while watching the Cubans, because Cuban professional baseball players can migrate to America and play professional baseball in America and get paid millions to do so.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if after the Olympics we might not see defections, but legal migration of Cuban boxers to certainly America.
Well, I would love to, like you say, without getting politics involved too much. I think I call it globalization. I think it's healthy. In any walk of life where they're going to increase the competition, I think it's healthy, because it increases the standards for those already there.
Yeah.
We've seen it in a sport that Carl and I love very much. Football. Yeah. It's increased the British standard of football by having the best foreign players in, by having the best managers in, and I think that's what it's done. Obviously, in the boxing, particularly with the GB boys, the styles have changed as well. Obviously, the funding's helped as well. But these Cubans are good enough, and they should be given the opportunities. I mean, if Teofilos Stevenson and all those great Cubans had those opportunities, the likes of Yuriokis Gamboa and Guillermo Rigondo, all those opportunities, who knows what they could have achieved, because Felix Savon as well, because they were great. So hopefully we see a few of these Cubans turn over.
Yeah.
It does boil down to money, I guarantee it.
Oh,
it's kind of interesting if you look at the global aspect of boxing as a profession. We might not regard the Cubans as professionals, but they're certainly paid a higher standard of living, if you will, to remain in Cuba and box for their country. So it's not there's an incentive to stay in Cuba, but I'd be curious to know whether after these Olympics, Cuban boxers are given the same rights to move as their baseball players are.
Yeah. It just depends on who goes looking for them, which promoter goes looking for them. Some of them, like I said, are on their 4th cycle, so some of them might stay on for another cycle. I think, like about Iglesias, who won gold at welterweight. It's now or never, because if he doesn't turn pro, they get to a point where he's just too old, and he ends up like Zhu Shimon, where he just can't adapt to the pros. But going down to featherweight, so the number 1 seed for that was the Uzbekistan lad. He lost to the Irish boy Kurt Walker, and that was a tremendous fight. Basically, this Uzbekistan kid, he had a very similar style to Gamal Yafai. He was a bit smaller, stockier, so he fought on the inside and he was powerful. Kurt Walker just boxed his ears off on the outside. So tremendous performance, and that was one of my sort of like pleasant surprises, if you like. That's probably one of the best upset wins for me. There'll be other ones out there, but for me, because nobody gave Kurt Walker a chance, and he was absolutely tremendous. So Kurt will be a real nice excitement if he turns over. But this one was interesting because Duke Reagan from America, who's also a pro, because America had 3 pros, if I believe, in their squad, and he, 3 didn't. Yeah, 3 was it?
Troy Isley,
Keyshawn and Duke Reagan. Yeah. So Reagan got the silver. He lost to the Russian, but he had a great performance against the Ghanaian. I was impressed with the Ghanaian, Samuel Taki. I thought he was class. He was a dark horse in there, and he's only a young boy himself. He's 20, so hopefully, you would like to see him come again, maybe at the Commonwealths, and then see what he can do. But that was another interesting division to see. Once a number one seed gets knocked out, it always becomes a little bit interesting to see who's going to take that top medal position. But yeah, that one was great. And then down at the final one for the men, the one that our boy took the gold in, the flyweight division. The number one seed for that was the Indian, Amit. Yeah. And we all know what happened. As Carl's already said, to Galalify was sensational. And if somebody said to me he's going to win the Val Barker Trophy, which gets given to the best boxer of the tournament, the pound for pound one, I wouldn't grumble at that. I thought, Carl's right. He was absolutely excellent. So he was terrific.
Yeah. You know what? Honestly, yeah, definitely.
So we've got 5 minutes left. So why don't we talk about the Canadian before? No, a bit too long actually.
Yeah. Well, I was just gonna give it. I know you had already mentioned at the start, but I was just gonna give a quick shout out to a couple of the women that won there. So Lauren Price winning at 75.
Brilliant, Lauren Price.
Yeah, obviously she was number one seed going in, and she showed why in that tournament. Kelly Harrington, again from Ireland, number one seed, showing what she was about. The Japanese girl who won gold at featherweight.
Aiden Walsh probably deserves a mention, don't he? The Irish lad at welterweight.
He sure does deserve a mention.
Aiden Walsh.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was the one, if I remember rightly. He got pulled out because he got injured for celebrating. Was that right?
Yeah,
he
did. Yeah.
I'm not mistaken, he broke his ankle jumping up and down.
Yeah. I think that's a harsh lesson to learn. If I'm going to be honest about that one, he would have fought Luke McCormack again, and they've got a bit of a rivalry. But I like Aiden Walsh.
I like what I've seen from Aiden Walsh.
Sorry.
I did like what I saw from Aiden Walsh.
Yeah. He's tall, he's athletic. I do like him. I just think when he comes up against Pat, there tends to be one winner, and that's Pat. He's got a sister, hasn't he, Michaela Walsh?
Yeah.
She went there, and the Irish have got a decent squad. So yeah, they're my sort of like my three ones for the women. That I wanted to shout out very, very quickly.
Do you know what was pleasant to see, though, all joking aside, was the amount of different nationalities that were picking up medals, which suggests that boxing's in a very strong position globally.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah, all this talk about how it's being dominated by the Cubans, the Americans. No, that's wrong. You've seen the Uzbeks in there. I think Mexico picked the medal.
Did I see it right? India did well.
Yeah, well, in India usually do okay. Yeah. India always have it half decent.
Philippines picked up a couple.
Pardon?
Philippines picked up a couple of medals.
Philippines did. But Philippines had a pro, didn't they? Was he at middleweight? Yeah, I think.
Semi.
Yeah, they had a pro. So Philippines did. There's a few nations there. You're gonna have to start ticking up. There's some power horses, really.
It just shows that boxing is in a strong position globally. That's the point I'm making.
Yeah, and I would agree. Not just, and we can see that with professionals, but in the amateur circuit as well. There's some good international programs out there, and you can see that because there's some consistently strong nations. Turkey picked up a couple of medals as well.
Do you know a serious question to Graham and Mike? And this is serious. I'm not taking the mic, or pardon the pun. Are you concerned that Canadian boxing is being left behind on the global stage?
You have to take into consideration a couple of things. One, the most populous and prosperous province in Canada is Ontario. And for the past, roughly speaking, 15 years, the sports federations, all of them, were controlled by a single gentleman by the name of Ken Hayashi. And Ken Hayashi refused to allow boxing in Ontario, professional or amateur. So our programs couldn't be developed properly here in Ontario.
And what
So-
was that, Graham? Why did he refuse to let boxing take place?
Ironically enough, he allowed other martial arts fights, but he wouldn't allow boxing. I only know his son. I don't know him, and I don't know therefore his reason. But it was purely personal. Because there was a lot of people who were saying there's a lot of rules and regulations that'll make it a safe sport. I don't understand where you're coming from. Blah blah blah. It might even have something to do with gambling, which I really doubt as well, seeing we have legalized gambling here as well. The other thing, too, is if you're on an amateur basis here in Canada and you're picked for the Olympic team, you have to move lock, stock, and barrel to Montreal, no matter where you are in the country. And our country's pretty big. So if you're a really good amateur and you're based in Vancouver and you want to go play on the Olympic team, you have to move to Montreal. You have to. So that bars a lot of amateurs making that transition, if you will, to the Olympic level.
Sorry to jump in there, Graham, but surely that's not a problem if the funding's there, because that's essentially what they do with Team GB. You know, if you want to box for Team GB, you've got no choice but to move to Sheffield.
I would argue yes and no. I understand your point, but I'm just saying it's roughly speaking a 5-hour flight from Vancouver to Montreal, roughly, and that's to get to the airport, and then you're another hour out of the city. So you know, to go, and you're expected to move your family, so you've got to quit everything. You've got to quit your job. Anyway, so my point to you was simply in addressing the boxing issue. Those challenges remain to be overcome. We are allowing Ken Hayashi since retired. So boxing has begun to evolve again in the province of Ontario. And you're starting to see a lot of popularity among the amateur ranks now. And I would imagine within 3 or 4 years, you'll see a bigger, stronger team at the next Olympics. But again, one of the other issues we have, and I was going to mention it briefly, was the qualifying system. I would hope that moving forward, just to improve the level of quality of competition at the next Olympics, they somewhat sort out their qualifiers. I mean, granted, there was restrictions this year with COVID and it limited the number of qualifiers. And some boxers did get in by luxury of a lottery. But as Canadians, we have to go up against the Americans and the Mexicans and the Caribbean nations, not to mention the Central American states. So we've got some pretty heavy competition to work our way through. But I will say this, of all of that, we did have a significant victory, if you will, in Mandy Bujold, who fought for women's rights and was allowed to go to the Olympics to box.
Yeah, that made the UK go, and we're well versed on that case. That
made our news. That made our news.
Yeah, I mean, she's a bright young lady. She's really smart, but she's a mother, and that should not be held against her in any way, shape, or form, no matter what sport, by the way. And then the way boxing had set up its rules in terms of qualifying, they were a bit unfair, the way they treated her. Because she was a world champion at the amateur level, and she deserved to go to the Olympics, especially if you followed her training regimen. This young lady is tough as nails, and yet got beaten and took it in stride and took it like a champ. But at the end of the day, those are some of the reasons why boxing still has yet to emerge.
Graham, I think her victory was actually getting to the games, wasn't it? If we're brutal on it, the victory itself.
She'd already won the minute she landed. You know, she landed.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that.
And we were dealing with that for a long time. And you know, it was
actually our team of 5. I think it was four women and 1 male fighter who were able to qualify and go over. So I think a lot remains to be seen out of the men yet in the next few years. But realistically, what surprised me out of just bouncing off what Carl was saying is the globalization of boxing. It is quite popular around the world. I was really happy to see having spent some time in Ghana, Christian and I were talking about this in the run up to the Olympics. We were really disappointed that Nigerians pulled out their team. That was really too bad because boxing is huge in Nigeria. But to see
it's big in Ghana as well. I know because my parents are from there. So when I've been there, the setup there is great. So I was disappointed I didn't see more Ghanaian boxers medaling. And Ghana's got a rich history with Azuma Nelson and Isaac Quartier and all that. But yeah, you're right. In West Africa as a whole, boxing's big there. So we're starting to see pockets where these countries are starting to grow and perform.
Oh yeah.
So now that's good news for us on two levels. One, with respect to what we're doing, talking about this and making boxing fans more aware of what's happening on a local level, as well as a national level and an international level.
Right.
So the Olympics certainly can profile certain boxers in certain nations and certain programs.
Mm-hmm.
And then what Great Britain has done can be emulated by other countries because it's a proven model and it's proven successful. But then again, what I was saying earlier is also true, and that is some countries pay their boxers to fight. So I don't know where there must be a gray area between what is considered truly amateur, this gray area, and then truly professional. And this was a bit of a tight one too, simply because the American fighters, by example, although they were pro, they wouldn't have been pro last year if the Olympics had been held last year.
Well, I believe all three of the U.S. pros debuted during the bubble.
Yeah.
Right. So they all debuted during the bubble, in the bubble, and reasoning was, hey, they weren't training. They were stuck at home, COVID. We talked to a bunch of these kids already. At the beginning of Knuckle Up, I've talked to a few of these kids, and yeah, man, it was sit around and do nothing or sit around and make money. So,
and quite frankly, what they proved is that whether you're pro or not, it really doesn't matter at the Olympic level. And I know Ray has a bit of difficulty with that, but I don't. I mean, there are certain people who are at the Olympics and they're there because they're true champions at their sport, and it's a different set of rules than the professional game. So did the professionals who are fighting at the Olympics this year have any advantage? I don't think so.
No,
I don't think so.
No, I don't think they had. I don't think they had enough fight to really transition into a real pro fighter anyway.
Well, it's not like they all won gold, was it? It's not like they all picked up gold.
Right.
Yeah, I get that. For me, it's the people work long and hard to be in an Olympic cycle. Yeah. It's not every year, it's every 4 years. It's not necessarily all the time the advantages in the ring. It's about taking away that dream from somebody else because it automatically goes to a pro. I mean, you've got the likes of, in 2016, you had the likes of Amir Khan, who had already represented Team GB, putting his claim in to represent Pakistan. Now, if you were a boxer on the Pakistani national team, I would have been heartbroken if Amir Khan took my place. Because you can imagine some nations going, well, Amir Khan wants to box for us. Okay, Amir, what weight? 69. Yeah, okay, no worries. You're in. That's the problem that I've got.
Yeah,
that's not a fair. That's not a fair process.
See, I argue this fact for the U.S. is those three guys, they would have been on the Olympic team. Now they missed their dream. Do they give up that dream of maybe putting on that medal around their neck because they turned pro, because they were forced to turn pro because the way the world had depicted it? So there's two ways to kind of look at it, right?
Well, actually, with the Americans, it was down in the qualification. So something happened in the qualification, which meant that actually those three boxers had actually qualified. So when they were asked the question, Keyshawn was like, yes, it's my dream to go. So I get that one because, yeah, you're right. If the Olympics had been last year, the qualification tournament that they went to would have counted. Yeah. So that's how they inevitably qualified. So that one's slightly different. I'm on about the likes of the heavyweight who won the super heavyweight Jalanov from Uzbekistan. I think he had 8 pro fights.
Yeah. See, that's when you're getting up there, man. 8 pro fights. You're not fighting as an amateur anymore. You're not fighting on that front foot coming forward, going crazy. You're more methodical. You're on the back foot. You're using your IQ in the ring. It's a completely different game.
Yeah, he's 8 wins, 8 knockouts. And don't get me wrong, he's going to have a great career, but yeah, that's where it gets a little bit. But it is what it is. Generally, because of the style of Olympic style boxing, it favors the boxer, the back foot boxer, which is why Bilal Yafai's wins were so impressive. But hey, we got treated to a great fortnight worth of boxing. and roll on the next major international tournament, which is going to be at Commonwealth in Birmingham.
Yeah, that's going to be big. That's going to be big. Can't wait for that. I'm excited. Get to see some new knockouts.
The trouble is, they won't have a Canadian vest on, will they? But anyway, moving on from that.
Hey, we don't know. We don't know. There might be some Canadian guy, up in the woods, up in Red Deer or something like that, some mining town.
Well, I'm never getting in Canada, man. They're never going to let me in Canada if I ever fly over to Canada. No chance.
Yeah, they will. We got a seat for you up in the mining towns, about 26.
I bet you have. I bet you have.
I'll bet there's some mighty fine boxers up north.
There are, man. There are. I'm telling you, they're
by another name. They're called lumberjacks, and they're bigger and better than all of us put together. I guarantee it.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, any surprises come out of the Olympics for you guys? Like any shockers?
Well, that Kurt Walker one. I think that the wee box, he absolutely outclassed the number 1 seed, if Featherweight. If I'm going to be on it and not be biased, your Fives win against a Cuban. I wasn't expecting it. If you told me before the tournament your Five would beat a Cuban, in the manner that he did, that would have been a surprise. They're the ones off the top of my head that I can think of. Aiden in Samoa said Sousa's surprise win is against Kizniak, the Ukrainian lad. That was a great. I'd said that I thought Kizniak would beat him. I didn't think he would get stopped by him. But also as well, probably Caroline Dubois. I was probably expecting her. I was probably expecting a little bit more from her as well. So that's another surprise as well. Probably in the manner of her exit from the tournament. Carl, I don't know about you.
Yeah, Dubois was my surprise. I thought she was a nailed on gold. I did. Maybe a little bit too much hype going into the Olympics, maybe. Still very, very young. I think it was a learning exercise for Caroline more than anything. So she's only going to get better. So, I thought she may have done a bit better, but it's all learning, so it's all positive.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great point. I mean, one of the things and we've spoken to other Olympic athletes on this specifically, and they'll tell you what a pressure cooker the Olympics is.
Oh, yeah.
These particular Olympics, I think the athletes got away with one because they didn't have to perform in front of a truly live audience in the sense of thousands of people and as spectators. But other Olympic athletes has told us like just how tough it is mentally, not to mention physically, but mentally to go into the ring and compete as you normally would and should compete. So it's very interesting to see who won and who didn't win in this particular, like, for example, if Christian were on this panel right now with us, he'd tell us that he would have favored the Uzbeks or the Kazakhs, for example, going into this. And they did not do as well, I thought, as Christian thought they were going to.
Yeah, I remember saying to Christian in the live chat that the Uzbeks had a good squad. And it's just the way it is. It's just the way it turned out. And speaking about the impact on mental health, a little mention about rest in peace to the cyclist. I think she was from New Zealand. She passed away. She had put on a post on her social media about her struggles with mental health during the Olympics and sort of like afterwards. Just shades with Tyson Fury where he's win against Klitschko. You got to that pinnacle, all that pressure, it's gone, it's finished, and then all of a sudden you're on a downer. So we've got to remember that we're talking about their athletic ability, we're raving about them, which is one of the things we love. But we've got to remember these are human beings. They're going to go back to their families. Some of them have got to go back to work. Some of them are feeling disappointing, and we've got to remember that these are human beings. They're fragile, just like all of us.
And another point I would make regarding the crowd is it's a case by case, in my opinion, because a lot of boxers say to us when we interview them that the sterile environment of no audience or no crowd, they struggle to switch on. because they're used to the noise, they're used to it, and also the motivational aspect of it. A lot of fighters enjoy the buzz from the crowd, and it switches them on.
Yeah.
So as much as I'd argue that that is a factor as well. Some people like the sterile atmosphere, but some people just can't get up for the fight because it's sterile.
It's 50-50 with the amateurs, because if you look at the amateur boxing compared to, say, like football, the footballers, they're all professional anyway, so they're used to performing in front of crowds. Amateur boxers, especially if you're going on these international tournaments, you're going and you're fighting in these places and there's hardly anyone there anyway.
Yeah.
So it's not alien to them, that concept of fighting in the arena and there's barely anyone there apart from your own teammates, the ref, and a few people holding up cameras.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure half these amateur athletes have made those back road treks to, to that lucky barroom brawl down in bum F Idaho, where they run through the cornfields backwards naked, and like they're not they don't always have that big crowd, man, and sometimes they do need it to turn it on, man. Truthfully,
yeah.
You guys don't worry about that.
Well, I guess it's that rare balance between why do you do what you do? Do you do it for the love of the sport, or do you do it for the money?
Well, you know what? I'd like to argue that you can do it for the love of the sport, but at the end of the day, it is called prize fighting. You're doing it for money. Let's be real. That's why you go pro at doing this. You're not doing it just for the recognition. You're doing it to make money. That's why these guys sacrifice their bodies, hours. Like they're in there. Some of these guys, we were talking about from Tuscaloosa, Alabama. We had Trevon on. And, this guy's working 60 hours a week and still training so that he can have his pro fight in 2 weeks. Like some of these guys are really struggling. Some of these guys are out there, and there's a lot of talent that's going undiscovered in the world, and it's all because they just don't have the time or the funding to get out there and get themselves known. Where they should be taking up that whole social media aspect of it, following people like Ebony Bridges and the Paul brothers, as much as everybody hates them. But let's be real, man. Self-promotion these days is where it's at, and how these guys are going to get that prize fighting money.
What's that going to the Olympics?
Olympics.
I thought it was on the Friday. I thought it was on the Friday night panel then for a minute, Graham. Make your mind up. Don't worry.
It's too long until I hear myself not talk.
And now we've got Tim Witherspoon on the line. He's going to weigh in with some stories about cocaine and drinking.
From 1962.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Graham, you can always edit Mike out like you normally do when you put it on YouTube.
Yeah. Mike the Mouth, 12 minutes straight talking coming at you live.
No, it's awesome.
Yeah, man.
I'm sure that makes sense somewhere in Canada, Mike, but I didn't get a word of that.
So all in all, a great competition. I'm glad they made some changes to the way the judging was done as opposed to Rio. I'm glad they really just had a clean sweep of that, and that was absolutely transparent. I like the way the scoring came up between the rounds. By the way, we forgot to mention that in our show, but I thought that was a tremendous benefit to not only the fans but also the fighters. It had to have been. It goes to that knockout punch that Mike was talking about earlier. Because I don't know if he would have come out swinging for the fences otherwise. Other than that, I thought it was a great event. Got itself global exposure. I think all the fighters did tremendously well. They should be incredibly proud of what they've done and hold their flags up high.
Definitely. So I guess we're at that time, guys.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Graham, I don't know. You want to take us away there, brother?
No, sir. Seeing you spend the first few minutes off at the bar having a drink, why don't you take us out?
Please, Mike, don't do your catchphrase. Please, Mike,
No. This ain't no catchphrase. This is a whole new special episode. Guys, thank you for tuning in, man, for another special episode of TalkinFight.com here, and with our boys over the sea, Last Bell Boxing. Thanks for coming on, guys. Definitely, we love to accommodate you every time. We love having you on. Our fans love it. Your fans love it. Let's keep it going. And I had fun, man. Thank you again, guys.
And let me just jump in there. I'd like to say a big thank you to Big T and Aiden in the chat bar. Some great comments, guys.
Yeah. Thanks very much, lads, for commenting. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, man. Definitely. We always love the comments. We're always interactive with our fans. We love it. Great show, guys.
Without
Are
the
we going to
fans,
play? Are we going to play "God Save the Queen" to play us out or something like that? You know, I expect the VIP treatment. Come on, you must have it somewhere.
It's been secretly playing in the background the whole time. You haven't heard it?
That was in the contract, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Along with two glasses of wine and 2 glasses of gin.
Are we not
Right.
getting "God Save the Queen" then? Because I'm going to be ever so disappointed if we're not. Come on, Eric. I know Eric's a talent in this operation. I'm sure he can dig it out somewhere, Eric. Come on.
You know what Eric's doing? Eric's digging out Cheerios out of the couch right now at his house.
No, Eric's going to find it. He's assured me.
Oh yes. He's gonna find it. We're gonna play us out on "God Save the Queen."
So don't forget to tune into Last Bell Boxing Thursday night, 9 p.m. in the UK, just while we're waiting.
all right.
Eric,
Thanks,
outrageous.
lads. Is Eric
All right.
is Eric taking us out, or are we done?
I don't know what Eric's doing. I know he's running around after a bunch of rugrats right now, and you know what? We got to give Eric a hand. The man in the sky who never gets to be seen, never gets to be heard, but here is regulating us and keeping us on air so we can.
Hold on a minute. Hold on. Ray, want it on your contract that "God Save the Queen" was going to be played.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm not moving until my national anthem gets played.
I'm not going nowhere. Eric, do not stop this show until I hear "God Save the Queen."
I'm not moving out. I'm not moving out the igloo, as Graham would say.
Do you know if you don't play it, Eric, I'm going to send you another Lennox Lewis video.
Oh my God, that's awesome! That's so awesome. God Save the Queen, eh, gentlemen?
I still can't hear it.
Oh, it's coming! It's coming! Don't worry.
I can hear it.
Tell him to give it a bit of volume then. It ain't quite got over the sea yet.
Right? There it is.
Let me out off.
Oh, oh.